nerdy, unqualified, and absolutely indistinguishable from rambling. Welcome to the A&D Show.
Now don't do this, okay? It's been multiple years.
It's been like, what, 4 years now?
This is probably going to get out of hand.
Hello and welcome to the A&D Show. I'm David.
I'm Austin.
And there are some new things for us to discuss. If you're not aware, there is a new show from Amazon Prime. It's been touted, it's been publicized, it's been promoted. It's reportedly one of the most expensive series ever produced at a whopping $500,000 per episode, from what I remember, if I'm not mistaken. It's huge. The scale is massive. The cast is massive. What they're trying to do is massive. And we are going to discuss, because the first 2 episodes have dropped and we have both watched them, and we're going to discuss our admittedly varying opinions about this show.
Now, listen, to be fair, so I didn't watch the Lord of the Rings movies until we became best friends.
Mm-hmm.
And you forced me to watch those. You said you have to watch the director cut.
Yeah.
And I sacrificed like 47 hours of my life to watch these shows.
It's about accurate.
I mean, it was enjoyable. Me personally, I didn't see the wow, this is so amazingness. Now, there were some really cool scenes I loved, some of the battle scenes. And maybe for me, it was just, I mean, it was great storytelling. The storytelling was really well done in the movies. But I guess maybe I wanted more action, maybe I'm a Michael Bay boy. I don't know. But I like a good bit of action in my movies. And I think that's where I struggled to really get wild about the movies. They were good. I watched them. Not one that I would rewatch over and over and over. In fact, I don't know that I would rewatch it, period, unless my kid, I'm working on her becoming a nerd. Doing the best that I can. And so far, I've had success with some Star Wars stuff. She can at least name some of the characters, so we're making progress. And so eventually, if she wants to watch them, I will watch them with her. But the show, you texted me and you said the show is so good, you have to watch it. So I did. And this week, my wife and daughters and my mother-in-law, they went to Champaign one evening, and I said, "Hey, well, you know what? I'm going to have the night to myself. I'm going to make some barbecue sandwiches, and I'm going to watch The Rings of Power." I wish I wouldn't have. I wish that I would have got a colonoscopy instead.
Oh gosh, okay.
It wasn't
extreme.
So when I'm watching it and I'm waiting for something good to happen, and there was a little bit here, like a little nugget, little morsel. Mm-hmm. And I texted you halfway through. I said, "This is trash." And you said, "Just give it time. It gets better." And you lied.
I did not lie. Let me chime in here, because one thing that I think is important to note is that the show is based off of, it's not a direct adaptation of Tolkien's work. There are some things that they pull from, some things that they have there is a number of different works of Tolkien's that are canonical, but they're non-narrative. They're more like almost research material type stuff that he put together. My assumption is as kind of like a collection of appendices, things that he was putting together as background to develop out this world, so that when he would write, he would have all these details already fleshed out. He'd already have kind of the building blocks already put together, right? The Silmarillion, children of Hurin, whatever, however you pronounce that, the Fall of Gondolin, different books and things like that are all kind of in that same vein. They're almost biographical works of this fictional world, right? They're not necessarily the big action, extreme, powerful, beautiful set pieces that the Hobbit and Lord of the Rings trilogy became. But I will also say that, having said that, your biggest complaint with even the original Lord of the Rings film series, it was that it was a bit on the slow side. There were pieces that were exciting. I mean, I'll never forget the first time that I watched the battle against Gandalf and the Balrog in the first movie.
Yes.
That was like nightmare inducing for me when I was a kid. It was awesome. But the thing that you have to keep in mind is, if you've ever read the books, and I have, they are extremely slow paced and extremely laborious.
Would it surprise you to say that I've not read the books?
It doesn't surprise me, no.
Good.
But I will say that it kind of goes without saying that anybody, and I'll admit it's probably a bit of an acquired taste because of the way that Tolkien was his development of the world was so engrossing, and it was so rich with detail. Here's an example. A lot of authors can get bogged down in putting so much detail and world building that they kind of lose track of the story. Mm-hmm. A good example of an author that has the potential for this and has suffered from it at times and has excelled past it at other times is the author Dean Koontz, author of the great book franchise and mediocre film adaptation for Odd Thomas. It was a good, really cool story. He writes a lot of like psychological, like supernatural, pseudo supernatural fiction. Really cool writer, but he's one of those writers that he can get bogged down with detail about describing settings, describing characters, and it can be a little bit distracting from the rest of the book. Well, Tolkien was a prime offender in that realm. I remember the first time I ever tried to read the Fellowship of the Rings, the first entry into the Lord of the Rings saga, was book on tape, if it kind of delineates how old I am. Book on tape. It was a 12 cassette tape bundle, and it literally came in a book, like a 12 by 12 inch cassette book that you would open up, pop a tape out, put it in, play it till the end, flip it over, keep on going. 30 plus hours for the single first book of the series. Maybe not 30 plus. I think it was maybe 26 hours.
But yeah, you're younger than me, but I do recall books on tape.
Yeah.
I recall recently helping you acquire the Harry Potter audio.
Yes. And I will say, I am in about a third of the way through the sixth or seventh book of that series. Super good. I love audiobooks.
Well, I love the idea of audiobooks. Like, David, you know me, I like, when you were here, I would often talk about listening to talk radio. And I did that a lot. And I'm at the point now, and maybe I'm the old guy in the room, but driving in utter silence is kind of nice.
At times, I will agree. But,
occasionally I want to rock out, but sometimes the utter silence is soothing and beautiful.
Yeah. Well, I will say,
listening to Morgan Freeman read Tolkien is not on my list of things to incorporate.
If only it was Morgan. No,
Frodo the Hobbit. I can't do it.
No.
I can do Mickey Mouse. That's about it.
Yeah, right. So here's the thing, though. Going back to the idea is that the books are written with a very slow pacing. I don't know why he wrote them this way, but I do know that he did it, and it was very intentional, and it was very strategic, and it was kind of a staple. It was kind of a Tolkien kind of identifier of his works, to be written at a pace that feels very dragging, but it's kind of constantly building towards something else. And so the whole of the first of the books, the 4 books that have been adapted into the 6 movie series, for The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings, the whole of them, they were all written that way. And so when Peter Jackson came and created the films, he did his best, and I think he did a fantastic job of adapting the books, not only in their content but also in the pacing. And that's where you end up with these 4-hour-long epics that there's really not a ton of action. There's not a ton of these. I mean, the set pieces are huge. The world is just massive, and it's beautiful, very well put together, very well developed. A lot of vision that's been created with this, and it's incredibly well done. And so now you fast forward, that was 2001 or 2003 or somewhere in that window when those kind of were in their heyday, and or maybe they were finishing at that point. I can't remember. Anyway, when you look back at that, and then you kind of look forward at what the producers for the Amazon Rings of Power show are trying to do, it makes sense to me that their pacing would be slow.
Mm-hmm.
It's not uncharacteristic for a Tolkien work, or something that's at the very least trying to emulate his style, for it to be very slow and deliberate pacing. And that's where what I saw in the first 2 episodes had that very kind of Tolkien vibe to it. Whereas like the first episode was like, okay, we got to establish some ground rules. And it's got a vibe that's similar. It kind of calls back a little bit to the Lord of the Rings, the opening of the Fellowship of the Ring, with Galadriel giving a voiceover and kind of giving some backstory to what's led them to where they're at the beginning. And there's some kind of time jumps where it shows some things happening and shows some other stuff happening, and it's just kind of back and forth. And I won't spoil it for anybody who hasn't watched it. If you haven't seen it, I would advise you to go to watch it if you like Lord of the Rings. If you're like Austin,
no, listen. I will finish it. It's part of my culture. It's who I am as a human being. That I have. I feel like I'm obligated to watch this, and I will watch it. I'll finish out the series. But I just, it's not so far. At least 2 episodes in, it's not my cup of tea. Now, I prefer, a good show to a good movie, because I like the elongation of a show. I like that, you can tell more of a story in 8 hours than you can in 3 hours, or even 4 hours. So I like that aspect of it. And I greatly prefer a show, but for me, I think that I would prefer a little less of the slow pace, pick it up a little bit. Let's get some stuff going. I just feel like it's like when you're there are other movies I've seen in the past that, like, they create dialogue for the sake of dialogue. It holds no bearing on the story. This scene holds no bearing on anything else. It's just a big snooze. And I think that's my biggest issue, is that I want to see, like you said, in the movies by and large were a slow pace, and I would like a little bit of a less slow pace. Maybe we could power walk it. We don't have to run it. We don't have to run, but maybe power walk. Maybe at the very least a brisk walk.
Yeah. Oh, I think there's an art. It's definitely an art form just by default, but I think there is definitely a way to massage a story in a runtime that makes sense to tell the story, but isn't too slow. A good example of a very slow paced movie that has a constant build that's recent is The Batman. The Batman, it kind of sprinkles in these kinds of action set pieces to kind of give you the hope of what's coming without betraying its ultimate climax at the end. But it also does it at a pacing that feels like it's taking its time to build this narrative, to build this story.
I
And
would not have you speak disparagingly of Mike King.
no, I'm not. I
Thank
love that movie. I think that movie is phenomenal. I think it excels at what it does. And I think to me, as a consumer, the primary contrast between, granted, other than the fact that they're totally different types of story and totally different production companies and all the other differences, the primary contrast in their pacing is that they have just been dancing the line of just right, too fast, and too slow. And the Batman kind of found that medium, that happy medium, where it's like, we're going to take our time to tell the story, so we're going to widen that gap a little bit over that perfect line, and we're going to take our time to tell the story, but we're going to sprinkle it in with some things that are going to keep your attention and keep you excited, and just not shock you so much that you're just like the whole time, but that they're going to do it in a way that's going to help you kind of stay engaged in the story. Whereas this Rings of Power is pushing that boundary just a little bit, almost a little bit too much. The first episode, I'll admit, wasn't super exciting. The whole time, there wasn't much suspension of disbelief for me. That's kind of the primary goal of any film, is to suspend your disbelief for the hour or hour and a half, or in this case, I think it was 63 minutes or whatever per episode. They're trying to suspend your disbelief that it's not real, so that you can kind of just absorb yourself in the world building, right?
I will say that I did like the end of the first episode.
Yeah.
And not, like, I felt like,
The cliffhanger.
Pseudo cliffhanger. It's not, it's really a cliffhanger if you fully expected that to happen. But I think that, for me, I liked how it ended, that first episode. And
yeah.
So, like I said, I'm going to give it a shot, because honestly, I didn't hate the movies. It wasn't my thing. And I'm hoping by the end that this is just, hey, it wasn't terrible. It just wasn't, a franchise that I would be, goo goo gaga about. I would be more, hey, this is fine.
I think
that's really what I want, is just, hey, just be not terrible. Like,
well, I think over time it's gonna crescendo, because you're already seeing that through the first two episodes. Episode 1, the pacing is slow. The suspension of disbelief really isn't there the whole time. For me, I'm looking at it and I'm like, okay, who is this character? Who is this character? How do they look compared to their original, franchise counterparts? And I'm sitting there doing these comparisons and contrasting, things or whatever in my mind the whole time. And I'm getting the story, but I'm just kind of like, I don't know if I really care yet at this point. I've had enough input, positive and negative, to kind of balance it out. So I'm just going in at an even keel, at a blank slate. But then when episode 2 hits, there's a big crescendo at the end of episode 1 that kind of leads to this, okay, what? And then at the onset of episode 2 and throughout, it gives this impression of that's building to something. I think we can all, if you're up on any of the lore of Lord of the Rings, you probably know, based on the title, what it is that it's crescendoing to. The rise, essentially, of Sauron, which is kind of exciting to see where that's going to go and how that's going to kind of segue into the Lord of the Rings trilogy. If they're going to try to segue to them, or if they're going to just try to reboot them their own way, whatever. I'm intrigued by it. I'll put it that way. I don't think that they're getting everything right. But I love their casting decisions. I think the girl that they've chosen for Galadriel, I think she is probably the best choice they could have gotten, other than, what's her name? Kate. I can't remember her last name all of a sudden. Anyway, the girl who played the original Galadriel, I don't think they could have done any better other than getting a younger her, right? And so I think that she's doing a great job. The other cast is doing great. The guy that plays Elrond, I think he looks enough the part, and I like the freshness that they're bringing to it. But at the same time, I like that they're hearkening back to Peter Jackson and his kind of grandiose vision of the swooping aerials and those kinds of things that really, to me, are indicative of a Lord of the Rings world construction, and it's kind of neat to see them kind of pull some of the kind of backstory of the development of different cultures and races throughout Middle Earth, the hobbits being called Harfoots, etc. Things like that I think are really cool. My assumption is that one of the characters that you see is going to be announced or pushed as a character that we'll all know and love in the future. I'm trying not to give too much away. I think it's great. I'm really excited about it. I'm looking forward to the next episode. I thought that what happened in episode 2 was kind of really exciting. I'm trying to give my opinions without just kind of giving spoilers. So I'll stop there. I think it was great. I know your reservations, Austin,
right?
But I think ultimately for myself, I think that it's definitely got some potential to be a really good show.
Right. And I don't, there are things that we agree on, and there are things that we don't necessarily completely agree on.
Yeah.
We've discussed every franchise, between Star Wars, Marvel, DC, Lord of the Rings, where, and how we rate things is different. And again, I think that I will still watch the show, and I'll watch it until the end. I'll watch the entire show. I hope that for my sake, and really for the fans' sake, that there's a big brouhaha about it being review bombed, or whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
To where they had just rocked down the audience score on like Rotten Tomatoes, and you've seen that a lot with other shows, and some of the shows it's warranted. She-Hulk, other shows it's probably not. This to me is probably more of a middle of the road, 50, 60, maybe 70% audience score, where it should be, not 20s or 30s. I think that it's I joked earlier about I'd rather have a colonoscopy than watch that first episode again, and it was more about it was a joke, because I don't know that I want to have a colonoscopy anytime ever. But other than that, I think that for me, I just want a little more quickness. I want to get to the payoff faster. And I don't want to go from episode 1, episode 8 overnight. That's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is that I'd like maybe a little less story building. We can leave some things out. Like, we don't need to know the 20-year backstory of every character. I don't need to have 45 lines of unnecessary dialogue in every episode. Just let's get to the point. And maybe I'm just particular. I don't think that I am.
I would say that you probably are. Did you ever see, in a good way, I don't mean that to be an insult, but let me ask you this: Did you ever see the Tom Cruise helmed Jack Reacher films?
Okay, so this is a thing.
Any of them?
This is a thing that I'm into right now, because all right. So a month ago, I rewatched the first Reacher movie with Tom Cruise, and I have yet to find Never Look Back on streaming services.
I have it. I'll hit you up with my login so you can watch it.
Thanks, buddy.
Yeah.
And I just finished the Reacher series on Amazon.
That is a perfect example of the contrast in slow story building versus fast paced. Like, leave all the unnecessary details out. Don't worry about the world. Just get to the action. Because
can I tell
Tom Cruise and what's his name? I don't even remember the name. The
whatever
Alan, whatever his name is.
Alan Rickman.
No.
Whatever.
What is his name? Oh gosh, Richson. Alan Richson.
Sure. I
I think that's his
I have
name.
no clue.
Anyway, go
But-
on. Sorry.
So legitimately, the show is in my like current top 10.
It's phenomenal.
So good. It's
Yeah.
so good. If you have not seen Reacher yet, it's really good.
Highly recommend. 10 out of 10. The
Yeah.
whole series, because
Well-
it's the perfect. Well, there are probably some spots you should probably skip or
about
fast
20
forward.
seconds, about 20 seconds that you will need to fast forward through, like I did.
Yeah. Well, just as a rule of thumb, I tend to be the same as you when it comes to pacing. If I want to sit down and I want to digest an entire story, I don't want to have to go through what you have to go through right now with Stranger Things to get the entire story, right? I love Stranger Things. I think that the world building, the storytelling is phenomenal, but I haven't gone through the fourth season yet because I can't justify freaking 12 hours of sitting there watching every episode of the fourth season. I can't do it yet. I don't have the time. All right, see ya. All right, well, it's just you and me, listeners, viewers. No,
Listen, we got to take a segue here, because if you have not done this yet, I don't know that I spent 2 weeks every night laying in bed, because when we go to bed at my house, it's prison rules, and so when my wife goes to bed, I go to bed. This is
Yep.
how we do things.
Yep.
Happy marriage. But I can't go to bed early. That's my quiet time where I watch movies or shows. I study, I might read. It depends on what kind of mood I'm in. Lately, I've been kind of just like trying to like veg a little bit, because life can be stressful. So I've just been trying to like relax and watch a show or movie. And so anyway, before season 4 came out, I had rewatched the first 3 seasons minus season 2, episode 7. Skip that one.
why?
That's the one with the sister with Callie. It's a stupid episode. It's terrible. It's like the worst.
Oh, yeah. The one that
worst
everybody hates
episode.
that didn't lead anywhere.
Yeah, it's the worst episode bar none, and it's not worth it because it's got no bearing on the story. Again,
Right.
it's got no bearing on the story. I don't want to watch it. There's no bearing. But anyway, I binged it in like I think like 7 days. Like I was mad because I wanted to watch it and basically be like the next night, like I'm starting season 4, and I had finished like on Tuesday, not Friday, and I was mad at myself because it was an addiction. So, anyways, I'm watching it, and like it. So that is one of the few shows that like you can watch and like you're sucked in, like one episode in, and you're hooked, and you can't stop. It's addicting. And like I said, I'd watch it, and I'd watch it, and watch it, and watch it, and so then I get to season 4, and I did the first 2 episodes one night, and then I'm like, my word, it's 12:30. Like, what is going on? Like, it's so late. So then, like the next night, like I said, okay, I'm gonna start early. I'm gonna start 7:00, and I got to episode like 5 or 6, and I'm like, it is midnight again. Like I've got get up in the morning. This is terrible. Thankfully, it was 4th of July weekend, so it was a holiday weekend. I had Monday off, and I was able to finish it. But you gotta, David, you gotta do this.
Look, here's the thing.
No, there's no thing.
No, let me explain. So Allison and I, we have an understanding. Okay. She, and God love her, she loves almost everything that I love when it comes to pop culture and cinema. And I'm so thankful and so grateful that I married a woman like her, right? But because of that, for me to watch something without her is like the cardinal sin.
Yeah.
Like you just don't do that, right?
Yeah.
But here's the thing. So like, okay, I really wanted to follow up and watch Shang-Chi came out. Whatever your opinions are of that movie, doesn't matter. I really wanted to see it. I hadn't heard anything about it. I was strategically avoiding spoilers. It took me like 6 or 8 months to get her to sit down and watch that movie with me because I knew that if I had gone and watched it without her, she would have got upset. Well, imagine that times about 1 million for Stranger Things.
Mhm.
So I finally convinced her, here's what we need to do. We're about a month out from the new series opening. Let's take our time. There's 16 or 18 or whatever episodes for the first 3 seasons. We can get those going, and we can watch an episode or 2 every night this month. And by the time we get finished, we'll be ready for season 4. It'll be great. Unfortunately, we got through season 1. It took us longer than expected. And by the time we got through it, it was so intense. She was like, I need a break. Because that series, that first season is wild, dude. Like, it is. I had forgotten how intense that show was.
I love your wife.
So it got so intense for her. She was like, I need to take a break. And I was like, okay. So I have been strategically avoiding spoilers. I've even told her that instead of us going through and rewatching every episode, we'll go back and we'll watch one of those YouTube, like everything you need to know before season 4 type things.
I watched a few of them. There's actually quite a few good ones out there that really pretty good.
One of the channels I follow, New Rockstars, they put out one that I'm assuming is going to be good because I trust their content. And I told her, I was like, we'll just watch that. It's like 11 minutes to catch us up, and then we can. But when the run times for each episode for the first part of season 4 were released, and I realized that it was about 9.5, 10 hours just for the first part, and then the second part comes out and it's an additional like 4 hours total runtime for all the episodes. I was just like, okay, 13, 14 hours worth of content. I don't have time to get to all of it. Right. And she's still kind of on this like hiatus. She's like, we just need to chill because it was a little too intense for me, whatever. Well, another good example is the new Thor movie is out on Disney Plus as of like yesterday. I want to see that. Haven't gotten a chance to.
I want to so bad, but I'm afraid of being hurt.
Yeah.
I'm afraid of having my heart broken because you know me. I've told you before, I love Thor: The Dark World. I don't care what anybody says. I think it's a great movie.
Yeah, I thought it was great. I don't know why people brag on it.
Their bottom MCU list. I think it's a great movie.
I thought Christopher Eccleston did a great job as that villain. I've seen him. Okay, so juxtapose his just as a side note, juxtapose his dark elf or whatever character from Dark World to his villainous character in like Gone in 60 Seconds, and you'll see just how much of an improvement he's made in his acting career. And I thought he did a fantastic job. Plus, throw in there a little bit of Doctor Who, and you're like, all right, I can get behind some Christopher Eccleston.
If your wife thought season 1 Stranger Things was too much, good luck.
Don't tell me this.
Good luck.
I don't want to know how intense it's going to be because then I'll have to tell her, and then she'll be like, I don't want to watch it. I'll have to sit for another year.
Yeah, no. What I meant was like, it's almost like Beauty and the Beast.
Like it's super innocent and simple and
pretty tame. Yeah,
it'll just really warm your heart.
yeah. It's
warm your heart like a blowtorch warms a steak.
Yeah, it does. It really does.
Oh my gosh. Well, I guess only time will tell for Lord of the Rings. I think that or the Rings of Power, I should say. I think it's got some potential. That's what we wanted to talk about tonight. And I think ultimately, my opinion is that it's got potential. It's beautifully produced.
Oh, it looks great.
No doubt about that.
Visually, it's phenomenal.
Yeah, when you compare it to some of the films that have come out, I think that it's got the same visual quality as what Disney did with Star Wars, that same just beautifully produced and well made, but it's got way more potential for good storytelling than any of the newer Star Wars movies have had. Because let's be honest, if a dumpster could ignite itself on fire, that would be Disney right now. So everything they put their hands to is literally crashing and burning.
Yeah, they're not doing super good right now.
She-Hulk is here's an example. She-Hulk, if any of our viewers or listeners out there have seen She-Hulk, I watched the first episode. I gave a fairly in-depth breakdown of my thoughts and opinions on our website. Go check it out. put your feedback in there. I'd love to hear from you. But the first episode just didn't impress. It didn't depress necessarily, but it just wasn't like, I was like, okay, well, I don't really care about this now. And I haven't gone back to it as a clear indication of its quality. A film or a series should make you want to come back for more. That's one of the things that makes Stranger Things so good, is it, even though it finishes the story every season, you're just like, oh, I can't wait for something else. I can't wait for more of this. And She-Hulk has definitely not got that at all.
Yeah, I'm like you. I did the first episode, couldn't go back. And, the comments that I've seen like online from different blogs, Twitter, etc., Reddit, I don't want to. Like,
yeah,
I want to like shows that my franchises that I enjoy put out. I recently did, I guess last year, maybe before, I did the Punisher series. Really, really, really good.
Yeah, fantastic show.
Did you like the Daredevil movie? Not the show, the movie with Ben Affleck.
I didn't hate it when I first watched it.
I loved it.
I love Ben Affleck. I know rumors are that he's hard to work with.
Probably.
But I've never watched him in a movie and been like, this movie is horrible and he's why,
Well, maybe Geely, although I didn't watch it. I just know it was terrible. Yeah, so like I loved the Daredevil movie, but part of it is also like the nostalgia aspect of it, because like that came out in what, like 99?
It was a long time ago.
I was a teenager. And
was it Colin
Farrell was in it?
Farrell? Yeah.
Who was Kingpin? Was it Ving Rhames? Was Ving Rhames Kingpin?
Oh, is that who that was? I don't know. I haven't gone back to watch that movie in a long time.
I should go back and watch it.
Is it on Netflix now?
Might be.
I think it is.
It was. I remember watching it, and like, I mean, sure, it's campy. I get it. But I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the tar out of it. I thought it was a great movie.
There's definitely some cringy spots in it, but
yeah,
I really loved their casting was great.
Yeah,
Colin Farrell, out of character for himself, plays the villain and does a pretty great job. I mean, his powers were kind of lame, straightening out paper clips and throwing them through people's necks or something.
Cool.
It was kind of meh, but but in juxtaposition to the powers of the heroes, there really wasn't all that.
We've already discussed Colin Farrell as the Penguin and how you don't realize it's Colin Farrell.
No,
like you look at it, you can't look at it like that's Colin Farrell. Like
he's totally absorbed in that role.
It's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And so like watch that, and I'm like, how do you see Colin Farrell in that role, and like you watch it and like it's the best Penguin that's ever been done. And DeVito at his time was fine, but I was I like Tim Burton's first Batman. And Batman Returns has some moments that are really great, but that was kind of the beginning of like the darker feel of a Batman, because that replaced the Adam West, and then you got the Val Kilmer and the George Clooney Batman, and that was real campy. Those I do not, I don't look back on those fondly.
But Joel Schumacher did for Batman what Star Wars did, or what Disney did with Star Wars. He just took it and he made it something that it shouldn't have been.
Yeah. It was not great. Although I did enjoy, speaking of Disney and Star Wars, I did enjoy Obi-Wan or Kenobi. I enjoyed it.
That's another one that suffers a little bit with pacing.
It does.
But
there were some definite slow parts.
It really capitalized on the things that Mandalorian did well. It capitalized on like kind of the atmosphere. It capitalized on the visual effects. It was really well produced and really well shot.
Definitely some boring parts for sure.
Oh yeah, and it's one of those shows that I really don't want it to come back. I don't want them to make more.
Nope.
And it's not because I don't think that it would be good to watch more, so much as They need to stop worrying so much about original continuity and original characters. If Mandalorian is evidence of anything, it's evidence of the fact that they can do a standalone, separate in-universe character. And we're out of time. Like just now, we're out of time. Well, thanks for showing up. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We'll catch you on the next episode. We'll see you guys next time. All right.
Manana.